All right. Welcome to another episode of Shot Clock Scribbles. We're deep in the playoffs right now, and I have a very special guest today. A friend of the pod has been on the show before, and he's jumping on before game number 1 of the NBA Finals. We're recording this on Friday, the 29th of May. It's around 8:30 Pacific time, around 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. I am your host, and I have Simone Sandri on the show today. He is coming back. So, Simone, I appreciate you jumping on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. The New York Knicks, a lot of buzz in New York right before the World Cup right now. The Knicks have the city buzzing right now. Their playoff run has been pretty historic, to say the very least. Jalen Brunson, head of the snake. So the Knicks have been very good regular season team, but in the playoffs, they've been pretty dominant. 53 in 2019, fourth place in the East, but they've become virtually unbeatable in the playoffs. 11 games unbeaten right now. What do you think has clicked for them in the postseason that maybe wasn't so evident in the regular season?
I think they had some bit of some up and down during the regular season. It is to be expected for a team who's basically had their eyes on the postseason. It's actually a team that I've been saying that since the beginning, really made for the postseason. The kind of personality they have and the kind of basketball that they play. They look a little bored sometime in the regular season at stretches, and they really turning around after game 3 against Atlanta, which is kind of funny how things actually work, especially in New York City, but kind of, in the NBA, at that time, it seems that the sky was falling in New York. They were down 2-1 against Atlanta. They were already talking about, going all in for Giannis, that things are not going to work out under Coach Brown. And then all of a sudden, everything changes. The ball goes through Towns a little bit more, and this team plays arguably the best stretch of basketball I've seen for the Knicks playing, and I've been covering the Knicks since '97, so I've seen a lot of good teams. And these 10 games, it's not only the way they play, the way they win, they really kill the spirit of the opponents, and it's kind of amazing to see. Granted, they haven't played against Juggernaut. They played against a flawed Hawks team. They play against a really up and down Philadelphia team, and then a very disappointing Cleveland team, in my opinion. So the next test is going to be the most difficult, obviously, but still, you can argue against the result. You can argue against an 11-win stretch in the playoffs.
Absolutely killing it right now in the playoffs, and it seemed like there were a lot of reports that even Mike Brown was going to get fired, depending on even if they do good for the rest of the playoffs. Could you speak about maybe them playing through Karl Anthony Towns a little bit more? It seems like maybe that was the emphasis, or at least part of it is playing through him and having him playmate a lot more than he did last season.
For sure. We've been saying it's kind of funny. Like we use a lot of cliche when we cover the NBA, especially in the playoff. And the biggest cliche that we use during the postseason is the adjustment. It seems that coaches have to do adjustment constantly. Sometimes it's just players need to play better. Or make shots or play better defense. So that look like an adjustment if a player just play better. But in this case, it's actually a major adjustment that completely changed the trajectory of the team. So they decided to take a little bit of a load off Brunson to play through Anthony Towns, which, by the way, it seems that his number are going down a bit, but he's so much more involved in the offense. He's getting everybody else involved, and he's playing with force, making really smart decisions offensively. Karl Anthony Towns is a really good and talented player, and sometimes he's taking a back seat because Brunson is such a clutch player. So especially in the fourth quarter, you kind of need to go through your captain, or the guy who's actually in the past, he actually won Clutch Player of the Year. He's a guy who's definitely proved especially in New York, but even in Dallas to a degree that he is in the clutch. He can be unstoppable at time. But for sure, everything changes with this kind of this offense that we didn't expect Mike Brown to play with, and the results are just staggering. Like the way they're playing offensively. They're playing just unbelievable. The way they're shooting in the 11 win streak. They're shooting 53% from the field. They're just playing unbelievable basketball. They're giving like good shots to almost everybody. Shamet is playing fantastic. Bridges is playing great offensively as well. So it seems that everybody who's coming in, they just have better shots because of the way they're playing right now, and everybody's sharing kind of load, which is also keeps everybody engaged. And I really like the way they're playing offensively. Now, having said that, their test is going to be playing against a really, really good defense. And, whoever comes out of the West obviously has an unbelievable defense. So that's going to be the real test of what's going on in New York.
100%, 100%. And their offense has been great, but also their defense has been really good too, right? OG and Josh Hart, those guys really disrupting the other best players on the other team. Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, a lot of those guys are ball dominant, and they weren't really able to come through for Cleveland. But I also think that they've done a really good job on the defensive end. And Mike Brown, having coached in Sacramento for a couple of years, does have a huge emphasis on shooting a lot of threes, just letting them, go up, and then also having a more of an emphasis on defense. And Tim Thibodeau is also a defensive coach. Could you talk about maybe what the difference might be between maybe last year's team and this specific team? I know the coaching styles are different, but is there anything that you could say that you could pinpoint to be like, hey, this is the one thing that I think is a lot different than maybe last season?
Well, the approach to the regular season has been different. Thibodeau is obviously an old school coach who's taking, there's something to be said about that. He's taking every regular season like it's a playoff game.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's one of the things that we saw with Mike Brown, that the players are kind of buying into the idea that they, in the regular season, they know they're going to be up and down. They know there's, some minutes, or there's going to be situation in which even your best players are going to play for less stretches. So I think that the demand in the regular season has been a little on the softer side with Mike Brown. The way they play offense is also changed a lot. It's not really Brunson centric, but also we have to also to say the opposite, the other side of the coin. I have to say that we've seen, for instance, Towns playing much better than he did compared to last year, especially at stretches, which kind of helped also Mike Brown to a degree, because it make Mike Brown looks a little smarter. But it did from we can go back to saying that he's like more of a player's coach compared to Tibbs. I have to say I really like the way also Tibbs coach the Knicks. I think there's something to be said about taking the regular season really seriously, and that's one of the problems that we had compared to even 10, 15 years ago. And so I really don't. If you go back, even last year's run, the Knicks, they obviously didn't play as well as they did this year. But if they don't lose that game one against Indiana, that crazy 14-point fourth quarter when Nemba was making everything, we probably have a different series. We might have a Knicks in the final. So, I mean, they didn't really do that bad last year. So that's result in the last 25 years. So having said that, Mike Brown is becoming like a playoff coach right now, because it seems that he's reading defense in a way that we haven't seen it in New York. So, kudos to Mike Brown for what he did. I still think Thibodeau is a great coach, and he can give also. I wouldn't be surprised if we're gonna see him maybe on a staff next year, because I think he's getting bored of just being. He's going around the country and watching practice, but I think he still has a lot to give to the NBA. I think Tom.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Tibbs, we definitely want to see him back in the league coaching. I know he's giving some advice to a bunch of teams right now. He heads over to practice, shoot around, gives advice. In addition to that too, Simone, I had a layered question on that too. Is there a player that has exceeded your expectations? This roster is mainly the same as last year. Maybe we take out Yabusele. Jose Alvarado was a player that they picked up in the trade deadline. Jordan Clarkson is another player they picked up from the Utah Jazz. Hasn't really gotten a lot of minutes during these playoffs. As we all know, those minutes during the playoffs kind of shrink for the role players. But Miles McBride has also played very good for them as well, being the backup to JB there. Is there a player that you would say has exceeded your expectations so far?
Well, during this streak, definitely Shamet. Obviously, he's making everything from pre. So and also he's playing actually good defense. So I would say that the guy. But you're right. I mean, compared to last year, I would have expected Clarkson to leave a mark in the playoff, which he didn't. And also, when the playoff started, I thought Mitch Robinson would have been like the X factor of the Knicks, which he hasn't been. By the way, if Mitch Robinson is not 100% and is limited, or he's got, if he can't really play, or if he plays with, if he's timid during the final, it's going to be a huge a huge issue for the Knicks, but that's obviously another issue. So definitely the guy that surprised me is Shamet, the way he's playing. But I have to say that the guy that I'm most impressed with is OG.
Hmm.
The way he's playing is such arguably one of the best two-way players in the NBA. Is like a linebacker with the way he's built, and he's offensively is such a commodity to have because he doesn't even need a lot of plays for him, but he also can give you 18 with his eyes closed. And defensively, is such a huge part of what the Knicks are doing. It's such he's an amazing athlete. I'm so impressed by what he's doing this year as well.
Yeah, OG's been good. And his offensive game has really improved too. I
Right,
think one of the biggest adjustments that he had was the 3-point shot. He's really good with that corner
for
three.
sure.
It seemed like he did some work with Dirk Nowitzki, and he was able to give him some pointers on that. His three ball has really improved. But you're 100% right. OG has been great on both sides of the ball. You don't really need to even call a play for him. And he's been excellent for them. And you talked about Landry Shamet. He's been good, especially these last two games against Cleveland. His last game, 16 points, 4 for 4, going perfect from the 3-point line. Before that, he had 14 points, 4 out of 5 from the 3-point line. I think he's probably getting a little bit more minutes than Jordan Clarkson because he plays a little bit probably better defense.
Right, right,
If I'm being honest as well.
right, for sure.
You spoke about Mitch Robinson. I wanted to touch on that real quick, Simone. So there came a report yesterday that he broke his pinky. He just had surgery. Game number 1 is Wednesday on the 3rd. The Knicks are going to be on the road to either the Spurs or the OKC Thunder, who are dueling it out for game number 7. Could you give us a little bit more insight on Mitchell Robinson's injury? He's had his bad luck with injuries, fractured finger in 2021, broken thumb in 2023. Could you talk about what's going on with him?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had some bad luck with injury, and he's such a pivotal player for the Knicks, especially in the finals. Whoever it is, I mean, if it's San Antonio, is arguably one of the most important player of the roster because he's probably the antidote to Embiid. He's
Hmm.
arguably the best defender and he proved it also, for instance, in the NBA Cup, in the final of the NBA Cup. But he really can contain Wemby, which is obviously not easy. With his physicality, he also can give issue at Wemby on the defensive rebound because he's such a good offensive rebounder. So if they have a limited Mitchell Robinson would be a huge issue. There is like some optimism that he can play game 1. The only
Okay.
problem is that he had surgery to repair the fracture on his pinky. It's on his shooting hand, which he doesn't obviously shoot a lot, but it's still shooting hand is obviously the end that you use the most, even when you go up for rebound. So he's gonna play. He's gonna be able. He's probably gonna be a pain tolerance. But I was reading actually on Twitter on I think Terry Stotts, who's a doctor who's specialized in NBA injuries, and he said there's never been a player who came back earlier than 14 days for that kind of injury and that kind of surgery. So he can probably play. It's just gonna be an issue. What kind of pain tolerance he's going to have. And also, what does it mean for him, like grabbing the ball? Is he going to be able to grab the ball? How comfortable he's going to be using his right hands? And when there's an injury like that in the back of your mind, it's difficult to be comfortable, especially in a series that's going to be very demanding, like if it's the Spurs, but even if it's Oklahoma City, which obviously had a couple of bigs, they're extremely scary on both
Yeah.
ends on the floor. So I mean, Mitch Robinson is such a unique player. You can basically only play him for like about 20 minutes a game, but presence on both sides of the court, defensively, he's got a great feel for blocks. He's an unbelievable rebounder. He's a really good defender, but offensively, he touches almost every offensive rebound. He grabs some, he touches some, he deflects some. So
Yep.
it's such a commodity to have for the Knicks offense. So I'll be very, very, very interested to see what the prognosis is, and also what we can expect from even if he does play with pain, what we can expect from him.
Yeah. Appreciate that breakdown. Yeah, we're really anxious to see really what happens with Mitch because, like you said, he's a very pivotal player for the Knicks. Very limited in his minutes, but his impact, like you just mentioned there, goes beyond just the box score. Because you can look at the box score and look at the numbers. you need a player like Mitch on your team. He's a bruiser, and he's gonna go up for every offensive rebound. You already mentioned it too with the blocks. As far as this moving forward, Simone, would you say now, depending on his limitations in minutes, would this mean that maybe Karl Anthony Towns is maybe playing a little bit more of the five?
I mean, again, yes, most likely that's the outcome that but the problem with Karl Anthony Towns, especially if it's the Spurs, is a player who historically picks up cheap fouls also. And if you defend Wemby, you don't even need to pick up cheap fouls because you're gonna pick up just regular fouls because
Yep,
Wemby.
yep.
I would assume that probably OG is gonna be the matchup on Wemby for most of the minutes because he's 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 so athletic and he's so strong and you probably don't want the cat to pick up fouls.
Yep.
So I would assume that's what they would do. It's a completely different schematically. It changes everything. Obviously, if it's Oklahoma City, I would say in that case it probably goes on Hartenstein. But we obviously shall see. It's kind of interesting also the way the narrative, the enthusiasm there were around the Knicks and everything. It seems that we were going the right way. Everything was going the Knicks way, and all of a sudden we had this kind of big news, which obviously there was a bad news for the Knicks. So we'll see how the way they handle this bad news, and we'll see the way they handle the way they decide to play defense against the Spurs or OKC.
And speaking about that possible matchup too, Thunder or the Spurs. Many fans right now are erupting and they're picking the Spurs to win it. Sports analysts also know that the Spurs would also be somewhat of an easier path. The Thunder are a plus 100 championship favorite versus the Spurs at plus 220. Which matchup do you think would be more favorable for the New York Knicks? Oklahoma City Thunder's strong defense and MVP guard in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or San Antonio's young star like Victor Wembanyama? And what makes one better than the other as far as like a good test for them?
It's by far, I would say, the Spurs is the better matchup for New York. Granted, if Mitchell Robinson is ready to play and is 100% or close to 100%, he's really the player who can really. It's difficult to say limit because you can't really limit Wemby, but he's the guy who can bother Wemby the most in the entire, probably in the entire league. His physicality. Again, he can only play 20 minutes a game, also for different reasons. One reason being that he's the way he shoots free throws. If as soon as the team gets into the bonus, they're gonna foul him, and you're kind of forced to take him out. So that's actually one of the issue that you have. I would say that the Knicks are definitely going to be the underdog, no matter who they play. From bookmakers, but also from common sense. And it's fair because both teams won more than 60 games, and they are clearly they should clearly be the favorite. But I would, if you want to give me the percent, if I want to give you the percentage, I would say that against the Spurs, I would say probably 60-40 for the Spurs. But against the OKC, I would say I would be 75-80 for OKC because I think they don't match up well at all against OKC. Obviously, we have to see the bruises that OKC comes out of these unbelievable. So is Williams ready to play? Is Mitchell coming back? So those are obviously issues that we can ignore. But I would say that by far the Spurs are the better opponents for the Knicks.
Very good. Okay. I definitely believe so too. I think that's what a lot of people are looking forward to. A lot of teams are already bored with OKC, and once you start winning championships, everyone starts hating on you and SGA and all this foul baiting and all this nonsense. But yeah, I think the Spurs matchup would be probably best for the New York Knicks as well. Let's talk about rest real quick. Simone, because the Knicks have only lost 2 games in the playoffs, and they've had a lot of rest between some of these series here. Do you think the rest has really helped them? And then also, could it be on the flip coin? Could it be a detriment maybe going into the next matchup into the finals where maybe the first couple of minutes there might be some rust?
There might be some rust, but I'm always on the side of rest when it's rest versus rust, especially not because you can't just consider game 1, but you have to look at the entire series. So it's always best to work. You have so much more time to work, to rest, and to be fresh for the entirety of the series. So I'm definitely it's great for the Knicks what happened, sweeping
the Philadelphia
and then waiting until Cleveland was done, a 7 game series. Obviously, that game one was complicated, especially at the beginning for the Knicks.
Hmm.
But then you could see also what happened when a team is fresh and they can make those runs in the third or in the fourth quarter, which comes a little easier when you don't have so many miles on you. So I
Yeah,
definitely go on the right side.
that's what I would say too. Rest is definitely better. If you can afford, I mean, that's a luxury.
Right.
The Cleveland team, they lost their games in game number, I think, sixes. They had to go to two game sevens, right?
Correct.
And I believe their coach was saying if they had won those games, it would have given them a little bit more rest for the New York Knicks. But it's all in the past now. All right, cool. So let's talk about momentum and moving forward here. We spoke about it earlier, 11 games straight that the Knicks have won. What challenges do you think still remain for them to overcome? And what should fans realistically expect from this team in the finals? And what would it take to finally break the franchise's championship drought, last one being in 1973?
Well, there's obviously great enthusiasm in New York, and I don't think any of the fans want to hear the word realism right now. They rather dream and see what happens, because you know, right now, if you're a fan, you're so close to something that hasn't happened in more than 50 years, and you don't really want to talk about the matchup, talk about how difficult it's going to be to slow down Wemby, or you have the two times MVP and a team that has their 12 men will probably start for almost any other team in the NBA. You don't really want to talk about that. You just want to, kind of ride this momentum, which is an unbelievable. I think that it might be a little overrated momentum in the NBA. What I think it's not overrated, it's confidence. I think right now they're just full of confidence, the Knicks, and the way they play, they know that even if they hit a rough patch, they can come back. They can make those runs in the third quarter or in the fourth quarter, like those 10 run, 11 nothing run, which are so bone crushing for the opponent. So I think that's the most important part. Everybody is like flying high because they're kind of full of confidence right now.
The city is definitely flying high and definitely need that confidence in the playoffs, 100%. A lot of Knicks fans are very excited. Watch parties are getting canceled there, and they're having to find other avenues to watch the games. Hopefully, they get that situated. It doesn't look like there'll be any watch parties moving forward for the Knicks. Very good. Last question. I wanted to get you out on this, Simone. So the World Cup is happening in North America. You've got Canada, the US, and Mexico, and there being some games being played in New York City where you live, and then also in New Jersey as well. A lot of teams are having their camp in those locations as well. And being that you cover the sport, you spend a lot of time in New York City. Will you be attending any of the World Cup games or fan events there in New York or in New Jersey?
Well, I'm not gonna cover games as a reporter because of the NBA schedule is in June and the beginning of July. It's really
Busy time.
grueling, so I don't have kind of time. I might try to go to a couple of games. I'm not sure yet. It's the funny thing right now is that there's really not much buzz about the World Cup in New York because the Knicks are
Yeah,
capitalizing. So right
yeah.
now, the interesting fact about New York is that on June 16, in case the series goes to the game six, there'll be a game at the Garden and also a France, I think France Senegal World Cup game in at MetLife, which is it's in New Jersey, but it's about a couple of miles from the city. So
Yeah.
it'll be people are kind of bracing for like a kind of traffic nightmare. What's gonna happen. We'll see if the NBA Finals goes to six, but
Yeah.
that's gonna be a challenge for the city for the entire city to come to terms with like the cross or to have two major events like that.
Yeah, those are big time events.
Right.
June 13th, Brazil and Morocco, the game that you mentioned, France and Senegal, Norway and Senegal, Ecuador and Germany, and Panama and England, and then knockout stages as well on June 30th, the round of 32, and then July 5th, right after the holiday, the round of 16 matchup as well. So really, really exciting matches
Sure.
happening now.
And the
But right
final.
now, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's going to be stadium,
Right.
right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts about MetLife hosting the finals?
Well, it's gonna be really hot in July. In afternoon in July, it's gonna
Oh,
be
yeah.
crazy hot. So
Yeah.
I'm not too crazy about the fact that they're gonna force player to play in the afternoon to have the prime time in Europe. But it's really a great stadium. It's really difficult to get there. That's the only problem,
Yeah.
that it's difficult from the city to get there. And it's going to be even more difficult during the World Cup, because there's going to be very, 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 very limited parking. So yeah, it's
Yes,
going to be a
exactly.
big of a challenge. So we'll see what happens.
For sure, for sure. All right, well, that's all I got for you today. That's a wrap for today's episode of Shot Clock Scribbles. Huge shout out to Simone for jumping on this show, talking a whole lot of Knicks and World Cup. And I hope you guys really enjoyed it. And
Thanks for
Simone,
having me.
I
Yeah,
appreciate you jumping on
thanks for
again.
having me. Yeah.
Of course, of course.